Today, we're going to talk about an important topic that doesn't always get enough attention in IT, and that is the monitoring and analytics space. In my previous life on the business side, I knew how valuable tools like this can be, and leadership doesn't always sufficiently understand the value that they can provide to the business. Everybody, welcome back to another FUTRtech video podcast. I also want to let everyone know that the audio version of the podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and most of the others. And you can find it also at futr.buzzsprout.com. There's an interesting group of very successful entrepreneurs who spin out of Cisco, create some compelling tech, which is then acquired by Cisco and integrated into their product portfolio. And we are lucky enough to have one of those serial entrepreneurs with us today. Raju Datla is the founder of multiple Silicon Valley startups. Raju's latest endeavor is the AIOPs company CloudFabrix, where he is co-founder and CEO. Prior to CloudFabrix, Raju was vice president of Cisco's Datacenter group. He led the $3 billion Cisco UCS software division and was the CEO and co-founder of cloud computing startup Cloupia, as well as Jahi Networks, both of which were acquired by Cisco. Raju is here to fill us in on the state of the industry for AIOps and monitoring and analytics, and he is going to tell us how CloudFabrix is trying to change the game. Welcome, Raju.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Appreciate you being here. And we also have Sundesh Patel here with me.
Hey, Chris. Hey, Raju.
Raju, AIOps is kind of a big and growing space. It's a really interesting space. And I think one of the things that, people don't have a sufficient enough appreciation for is why analytics matter. Can you speak to the point of, why this is the space that you thought you should, build your company in?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for that question. So the why analytics matter, any traditional IT or the modern IT or the traditional IT, if you look at it, they are now the core of the core pillar of the entire business. Especially in the current situation, like the pandemic that we are going through, IT is even a lot more critical because that's essentially how the entire world is connected, how the employees are connected, customers are connected. But without analytics, how do you know how well your IT is running? Is it meeting your business outcomes? You have certain business goals and outcomes. Are they meeting? Is your IT doing enough to meet the outcomes? Do you have inefficiencies? If you don't measure, how do you know you have inefficiencies? How do you address them? Especially in the cost-saving culture right now we are getting into with the pandemic, you must have, you have to identify the inefficiencies very quickly and you have to know how to resolve it. Traditionally, a lot of the bigger enterprises, they threw money at the problem. They bought more infrastructure. They bought more monitoring tools. And they collected all this data, but essentially not much being done with the data, IT operational data.
I have seen quite a bit of that, and I think we talk about how you mentioned sort of this sprawl of analytics tools, right? I mean, it's such a fragmented market, right? So and I understand you guys do something to address that.
Absolutely.
You want to tell us about that?
Absolutely, yeah. The sprawl of the tools, right? You have monitoring tools for network, monitoring tools for storage, you have monitoring tools for compute, virtualization, database, application servers, and you have SaaS-based applications, external applications that you are using. You have security monitoring tools. Everybody is looking at these tools, and more than one tool in each of these domain. And for each one vendor, sometimes they are very specific to the specific vendor. You have an information overload of data. You have alert volume that at a scale that sometimes thousands of alerts per hour. That it's not possible for a human-based system to look at the data and make some sense out of it. So what analytics can do, or AIOps can do, is look at all this data holistically across all these layers, applications, databases, infrastructure, whether public or private cloud. Look at all these tools and provide you a more unified way of looking at all this data and a consolidated view, as well as provide visibility into whether the data that you have and is operating efficiently IT systems, are they operating efficiently? Are they meeting your business outcomes? Are they not meeting? If not, why? So that analytics can help us tell the data by looking at all this data and improve inefficiencies and significantly reduce the costs.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's interesting, the AI ops approach to it is an interesting one, right? Because as you mentioned, it's like there's just the complexity and it's not just the tool sprawl, it's actually the platform sprawl, right? Because now we're on-prem, we're in the cloud, we're in SaaS applications, we're working from home. I mean, the infrastructure sprawl has been insane, right?
Exactly.
So it's too much for an individual to figure out,
Right.
Is that the problem that you guys initially looked to solve in the market? What was the problem you saw in the market that you were really trying, like, this is where we can fit in and we can solve for this?
Sure, that's the primary problem, the precise problem we are trying to solve is you have too much, it's tool sprawl, too much data that nobody's looking at it, but there is some valuable information, insights in that one. How do we holistically look at the data and in the entire IT, not in a siloed fashion? How do we bring the data together across the IT, and we call it as the data democratization? Bring everything so that entire business leaders or the stakeholders can get meaningful insights from the data. Right? That starts with looking at the data holistically, not application performance management and analytics around it, not just the infrastructure, events and analytics around it.
So tell me a little bit about like how you do it differently. Like, what do you bring into the market? How do you differentiate yourself? What's the secret sauce?
Sure, absolutely. So let me tell you what is the problem with the other analytics tools. Besides being siloed, one of the major problems that we have today is analytics tools that we have, they don't have the context, the business context. You have a lot of IT assets. Some of the customers that we talk to, they have hundreds of thousands of networking devices. Routers, switches, sometimes telephones, voice communication devices, so many of them. How do you know if something were to affected or impacted? What business service does it impact? Who are the business users that are impacted? How does it impact your end customer? They don't know the context. So if you don't have the context of what business services are tied to what infrastructure and what data is important for that business service, what you're doing is a very pointed analytics today. All the analytics using the AI today that you're doing is you take a specific problem that everybody cares about, and you spend, hire engineers to look at the data, and you do the regression analysis or other machine learning based analysis to find out a specific solution for that one. But he's not looking at the whole data holistically. What we do differently is bring the context, automated mapping of services to the infrastructure, to the business's outcomes, doing this mapping most highly automated fashion, and then automated data plumbing. We know where the data is, for what purpose it can be used. No one has to program it and say, oh, you have a business outage, you need to go and look for this metric, this particular event database, or this particular log from this system. We have highly automated ability to pull this data, understand the data, and provide contextual-based analytics to that one. That's the secret sauce that we have.
So you can replace a CMDB in an organization, it sounds like. Is that
we can do without CMDB. We have the ability to discover all the assets basically and build the relationships automated. However, most of our customers have a version of CMDB. Almost every enterprise invested into CMDB, but it tends to get outdated very quickly. It's probably some of the information is not even captured. They replace so much assets. There are so many assets that are not in the CMDB anymore, or they remove the equipment that's still in the CMDB. So they don't trust the CMDB. Without the trust, you cannot do the business service mapping. So we can work with CMDB, but we address the gaps that CMDB has, or we can work without CMDB at all.
And can you provide? Could somebody then just say, like, part of the value proposition of this is like, I don't have to invest in my CMDB anymore. I can just sort of use this, or are you not quite there?
We're not quite there yet. So what we do is, we work with CMDBs and update them in an automated fashion, enrich them and update them in an automated fashion, because we are looking at from an IT operational analytics context. CMDB does more than that. You need CMDB for other planning, other change management aspects of it. That we are not there yet. We are focusing on looking at the CMDB and enriching if there are gaps, addressing the gaps in an automated fashion, but not trying to replace the database itself.
Gotcha. So tell me about I know we talked about the track record you guys have had. I mean, you're very seasoned team, which is I think that's one of the things that to me is particularly interesting about you guys. It's not like you're just some guys who had an idea and came through. I mean, this is something you've done several times and and had successful products come out of it, right? So that I think that puts a little bit more weight behind some of the things that you're doing, but and because of that, I think you've got initially some very large customers. You kind of going the other way, right? Rather than starting off from some of the smaller customers and building your way to the big customers, you're starting with the big customers and then expanding from there because of your relationships and your track record. But so what are kind of some of the key industries that you guys are in and some of the key use cases that you see, that are really, really a sweet spot for you guys?
Sure. So, we are not tied to a specific vertical because of the nature of the solution, but our customer today is heavily into the healthcare and financial services, basically. And we have some customers that are in the defense space, basically, as well, right? So this is the group of customers. Most of them are global customers. They span across the world. And a lot of the new customers that we are acquiring also tend to be in that space, but not necessarily that our solution is a vertical, specific. So what are the top use cases that we see? Number one thing we offer, first use case that we do is a consolidated view of all your IT information, assets, as well as all the critical alerts and events that are happening, a consolidated view, a single pane of glass visibility into everything that's going on. Irrespective of the tools that you are using, whether you're using some legacy monitoring tool, or using Splunk, or you're using Elk Stack or Big Panda or something else, we pull the information from all these tools into a single pane and divide that or kind of analyze that by site, by application, by consuming group or business outcome. We kind of allocate the information based on who is the audience. A CIO can look at that information and say, this is the everything that's going on in my enterprise. These are all the critical alerts going on in the application infrastructure during this time, at that time. So that's the single pane of visibility is the first use case. Second use case is the alert noise reduction. We have some customers that produce tens of thousands of alerts per hour, sometimes even a lot more, actually, 500 per second, but on a steady state, we talk about tens of thousands of alerts per. Obviously, nobody is looking at them. What they do today is that they put some rules to say this type of alert should become an incident, a ticket, so that somebody can look at it. These rule-based systems get outdated very quickly. Somebody knows how to put a rule, but something changes in the event or a description or a new type of a system is put in, you don't have the rule for it. So these things are outdated, and they're throwing money at the problem by hiring a lot of offshore consultant to look at all these events and say, tell me if it's a real issue and then escalate back to me if you think it's a real issue. It's not scalable. It's not scaling at all. What we are seeing is all these customers looking at it and say, how do we reduce the noise? How do we identify the real critical issues? By not missing the critical issue, how do we reduce the noise? How do you automatically correlate a bunch of events and say, this is all related to one incident, one situation that's happening? We do that, we offer that one as one of the use case, alert noise reduction. Depending upon type of infrastructure, number of events, we can reduce the noise up to 98%, 99%, or sometimes only 30, 40%. But important is not to miss the critical events.
Yeah.
So that's a specific use case.
Yeah. So so the interesting thing, so how do you train the AI? I mean, are you like sort of anonymizing and aggregating across multiple customers and across your entire deployments to create rules, or how does the AI training work on for you?
Sure. So we don't take data from different customers and aggregate that one. What we do is learn the models and then program the models in a way that each customer looks at their own data. because the data is so specific to every customer, we are not there yet where we can learn from across the different customers and, kind of deliver it back to a different customer.
Yeah.
We are not planning to do that anytime soon. What we do is we have the ability to look at the data and do a data discovery, right? What does it mean? What does it even mean? Which asset is this talking about in a highly automated fashion? Second thing is removing the context, separating the context from the symptom, right? In everything that we have going on, we have the tools and technologies to separate the context from the symptom. That we know that what symptoms are happening on what context, what assets. That's what we do. That helps us, our AI, to a better modeling on that one because of the way we automatically process the data. We can do a better ML on that one. Whether we do a clustering of all the events, whether we do a regression analysis on all the key performance metrics, so that we can forecast when the next burst of alerts is going to happen, how to prevent it. We don't look at the customer data only, but how we pre-process is really the differentiation.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's hard because there's a lot you by aggregating all these data points,
Right.
you have a lot of data sources, so
Right.
it can give you a lot of insights into the types of problems that you can have. So
Right.
it's an ongoing challenge to keep on top of that and grow sort of your algorithm's intelligence.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So there are a lot of challenges, but we have the ability to automatically correlate these things because we have the context. The main thing that separates us is understanding the context. This network switch, it is the top of the rig switch for these set of servers, and these are the applications running on that server. Understanding that relationship in a real-time fashion helps us look at the data differently. Mm-hmm. Right? Is this network event on that switch, does it impact on that particular application? If you look at just without that context, you have millions of these network events and a lot of things happening on the application. You don't have the context, you can't really correlate together. By looking at this holistically and doing the correlation of this application tied to this network infrastructure as an example, we are able to tie this data much together and correlate this and really separate the noise from the business critical events.
Yeah.
If there is a switch that has events and nobody's connected to it, we don't bother.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, as sort of an aggregation play, I mean, you're obviously aggregating a lot of data points and putting them together. One of the things I find with a lot of tools like that is that there's an opportunity for a lot of cost avoidance in an organization, right? So you can, what sort of tools might you displace, or how would you, change that cost, paradigm?
Sure. So yeah, absolutely. Right now, almost every tool in the IT operations space, they claim that they can consume or ingest data from other sources. Basically, they claim that they can be that single point of. Reality is that most of those tools are not there yet. And imagine replicating your data. You have millions of this operational data that a tool is producing, and pumping all the data into another tool is very expensive. You're talking about terabytes of data per day. Just to cost of a Splunk index or other such tools is going to be enormous. What we do is that we can ingest the data, or we can in place use that source as it is and still intelligently do the analytics. So we remove the tools that are no longer adding the value. We have our own equivalent open source based solutions that we go and replace it on the day one, but we let them use the existing tools more efficiently, because if you have to redirect every event and every metric into something like a Splunk, it's first of all, it doesn't scale, and also extremely expensive from a price point of view, right?
Yeah.
So, and obviously tools are still siloed. Network team has the control of their tools. We cannot go and change that one. But what we can do is look at all this data and bring into a single system like ours without replicating the entire data every time, and still provide a common visibility layer.
So can you provide, are you sort of multi-tenant capable in the sense that you can have lots of different parts of the organization having a view to their data without seeing maybe the whole thing that you wouldn't want them to, or some people seeing the whole thing?
Absolutely. We are absolutely a multi-tenant system, and our customers use it that way. And we have some, executive level, they see everything, but at a high level. They don't see the details. We have some network planning teams. They only see certain information. We have L1, L2 teams. They see everything, but what they need to see for their job. L1, L2 operations teams, basically. L3 teams see a lot more into the application logs, even some of the critical data that L1, L2 may not see. It's a multi-tenant, and based on the role or job function, you get to see a level of information and the breadth of information.
Yeah. So, I mean, by that regard, I mean, besides inside an organization or as sort of as a shared services organization, is this something that we'll see like an MSP use and with multiple customers? Is that kind of?
Yes. Yeah. We have some partners that are MSPs that are offering this to their customers in this shared environment. The MSP, ops team, NOC team, they see everything, all the customers in one dashboard, but the end customer logs in. Their job role, based on the job role, they see their own information, their own alerts, basically. Yeah, we built this platform in the last 5 years with the multi-tenancy, with the global scale in mind, that those are baked into our architecture.
Interesting. So, you kind of mentioned the pandemic earlier. I just want to kind of circle back to that too. I mean, like, you guys are a very early company, what are you doing to sort of stay agile during this pandemic? And like, obviously market conditions are crazy. I think some of the what's gone on actually lends itself to helping you sell your product, in the sense that with everybody going to work from home and putting clouds and SaaS applications, or putting applications in SaaS applications in cloud, there's been this infrastructure sprawl that everybody rushed to, but didn't have wrapped the kind of right security and analytics and things like that around it. So I would imagine that's helping your business. But tell me a little bit about what you're seeing in the market and how's that made you pivot or change your model?
Sure. Yeah. Being a startup, we ourselves faced with the problem. Suddenly, we have 2 locations. Suddenly, all the shutdown. None of us get to the office. You have the 1 or 2 months of shock, basically, right? Yeah. None of us have ever seen this one. But once we got used to this, actually, we realized that remote working is a lot more productive for the company. We miss, obviously, meeting other people, but it's a lot more productive, basically. And we realized the value of this remote working, the technology that we have today, how valuable it is. We couldn't have done this probably 10 years ago this well. Now our customers are in the same situation, right? So they're almost most of them are still remote working. They expect that to be probably next 6 months, 9 months, 1 year at least. Some of them have conveyed to us that at least mid next summer, until maybe longer. So they have moved everything to the remote working conditions. And then, we also focused on a use case for the remote working, scenarios. You have, hundreds or thousands of your employees accessing everything remotely. Your infrastructure may not have been designed that way to begin with. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You expect, 90% of users on premises, 10% remote, and your customers are always external. But suddenly everything changed. Nobody's in office anymore. Nobody's using Wi-Fi anymore. Everybody's using just, your firewall. So it is important to isolate the problem. So we created a use case just for that one, and we are, delivering that to our customers. And our customers, economically, obviously, we still don't know where this will end up, how far it will take full recovery. We are obviously seeing that people want to reduce the cost, right? And now there is a bigger emphasis on reducing the cost. So there is AIOps does provide an opportunity to reduce the cost, remove the inefficiencies, shift from traditional monitoring tools that are doing a lot of monitoring, but you cannot act on it. You just have to put more people to look at all those alerts. Now you can optimize this quite significantly. You can reduce a lot of this outsourcing that they do for L1, L2 costs. So that's a significant benefit that we are seeing. So we still don't know how the economy will turn out, but we do see that there is more emphasis on the technology, especially like AIOps type of solution.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you about is everything as a service is a really big deal right now, and as companies are looking to preserve cash flow, that's a really attractive option to them. I know you guys are a subscription service. Can you speak a little bit to that and what you're doing on that front?
Sure. So we have both. We were a subscription-based licensing. We have both on-premises as well as SaaS-based solution. but both are subscription-based solution basically, right? And a lot of our bigger and healthcare and financial services customers, they want the solution to be on-premises. Yes, they are moving towards cloud, but not there yet in some of the IT operations side of the things. So they're still on-premises. But either way, it's a subscription model. We do work with the customers and partners to put together a deal, sometimes a 3-year license, paid upfront, sometimes paid in a quarterly or yearly. So we have various models depending on the customers, cash flow situation at the time. And honestly, some of our customers still want to do the long-term deal paid upfront because they have the cash right now.
Yeah, if I can ask you a question, Raju. I mean, you're obviously a serial entrepreneur. You've been there and done that. So what have you learned in going down this journey, a few times before? What are some of the, maybe mistakes or lessons learned that you've had from the past that you're applying here now at CloudFabrix?
Sure. We are always an engineering first team, right? We're all technology and based entrepreneurs. We don't start with the business idea and trying to build the technology. We always look at a problem and say, what can I technologically? How can I technologically solve that problem? What is the customer problem? How can we solve it? So we always are technology based. What we learn, previous company even now is basically we always build the right technology, right? Build the right technology that solves tomorrow's problem as well, not just today's problem, but tomorrow's problem. Because it's easy to build a product very quickly and show the value, but it's very hard to scale beyond that one. Every day you're going back to drawing board to redo the product. So always build for the future. So we learned that one. In the past, we hit the scaling limits. Now we didn't want to hit this one. That's why we took a long time to build this platform the right way, with the right architecture, cloud-based, microservices-based architecture that we built it. So that's a big learning for us is to do the right technologically right thing. Don't do a shortcut to get to quickly.
And so in this market, we discussed off camera, we were talking about how you're going to be scaling and growing, into the sales force and everything now. So if I am a sales guy and I'm looking for a new home, what is it about CloudFabrix that you would want salespeople to know about you to get them excited about joining this journey with you?
Sure. So yeah, absolutely. So you will see that in the next couple of days, sometime this week. One of the analysts, put CloudFabrix as a value leader ahead of most of the other AI companies. So this is equivalent to they call it a radar report from EMA Research. We are the value leader in most spaces in the AIOPs. Being early stage startup, technologically, product strength wise, we are the leader. From a value point of view, we are leader ahead of well established companies. So we are in the very beginning of our journey, right? We have a validated platform. It is proven at a scale at global enterprises. Now we're beginning to grow the sales, beginning to grow everything around the sales and marketing. We're at the right time. I think this is the where we want to really partner with our future sales employees, our other partners to really grow that part of the business.
So historically, your previous businesses have been very channel oriented, which I think is a great thing, which helps expand your sales force. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah, we here we have a hybrid approach. We have some direct sales based approach, and a lot of it's a channel based approach. But certain type of enterprises still need a direct sale, so we started building that as well.
So you say you've hit some leadership categories here in such a short time. With 80 employees, what was the secret to that?
Yeah, we basically, as a startup, we are very agile. We're always involved in everything in the sense that technically everybody contributes in the company, right? So we are very focused on the technology and doing the right thing. And we built so many tools, understanding the data, understanding customer environment, that we're able to scale that better today, right? So the 80 people, honestly, they produced like 200 people basically in the last 4 or 5 years, and we have almost close to zero attrition in the 5 years. That team is very solid team.
Yeah, I mean, and as you guys are obviously serial entrepreneurs, but I got to imagine that you've brought over some on the engineering side, some of that team that is familiar to working with you and working together as well,
really
right?
impressive.
Yeah, some of them worked with us before, and it grew quite a bit. None of our earlier startups are this big, 80 people. They were a lot smaller, basically.
What do you see as the future of AIOps and analytics and monitoring? And where do you see that whole market going?
The AIOps basically going where it is. First thing that will happen is that democratization of the data. In the sense, everybody has access to the data. Today is extremely siloed. Only network team can look at the network data. Security team can look at the security event, but nobody else. First, having entire enterprise and a team to look at the data and insights based on that one, based on the job description, is the first step that will happen. AIOps will accomplish that one. Two, that what will happen in the AIOps is, today AIOps deployments are inefficient, not very inefficient, because you have to understand the data, you have to integrate into so many sources. You will see a lot of automation around that one, a lot of automated data analysis, which we are doing today, some of it in CloudFabrix, but you will see this highly efficient AIOps systems that look at the data and provide global insights or high-level insights to everybody in the organization. That means you can bring any analytics tool and plug in this data that is already looking at entire stack, and you can get more insights out of it. So the data will be separated from the team that runs the tool. It belongs to the enterprise going forward. I think that's what the future of AIOps is.
Yeah, and so on that point, what's the future of CloudFabrix? Where do you see you guys going?
Absolutely. So we are beginning globally starting our expansion through partnerships. We have obviously significant partnership with many of the VARs and system integrators throughout the world. We are going an aggressive path to increase those partnerships globally. We are beginning to increase our sales team globally. And, Asia Pac and EMA, we're just getting started. We'll grow significantly this year and next year. And as you see, we showed up in the, as a value leader in one of the analyst report. We expect to see it from other major analysts as well. And, we are going to be an aggressive growth path. Despite the pandemic situation, we're going to be an aggressive growth path for the next 12 months to 24 months.
So Raju, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. I know you're a very, very busy guy and have been for some time as sort of a serial entrepreneur. And I know the startup life is very, very challenging. I'm excited to see where CloudFabrix goes and what becomes of CloudFabrix. Although based on your previous track record, I might have a sense of where you guys are heading. But so thank you so much for joining us, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris and Sandesh. Thank you. Thanks for this.
So thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, click that like button, hit that subscribe button, because that helps a ton for the channel. And if you want to get notifications when we post new content, click on that bell icon. And I will see you in the next video.